Hello and welcome to the C3 Method Patreon Weekly Q&A with your host, Robert Polenick. Our goal is to educate you on everything health and fitness related with a clear, concise, and customized approach. We want you to know what you need to know and how to apply it in a way that fits you best. This is the weekly Q&A for Patreon. If you would like to submit questions for this Q&A, you can join our Patreon service. It's patreon.com/C3 method, and 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so it's C-T-H-R-E-E method. You can also reach out to us on our website, which is c3method.com, or our email, which is c3method@gmail.com. Lots of ways to reach out, lots of ways to get help. As a member of our Patreon service, you get to submit questions for the Q&A. We also have nutrition education, which can teach you how to write your own nutrition programs, no matter what your goal is. And we have a ton of training program information. Programs that are created for you, programs that you can create on your own, and then also you can submit requests for specific training program information, and I'll be adding to that on a weekly basis. Lots of good stuff, so check it out. Let's get into this week's questions. The first question we have is nutrition. What's the difference between whey isolate and whey concentrate? Okay, so these are terms referred to for protein powders. When they're creating a protein powder, there's a filtration process where they want to get rid of what isn't protein. So that's kind of the idea of it. Isolate and concentrate reference a quality of filtration. Whey concentrate will be less filtered than whey isolate. So it might have, an extra gram or two of fats, an extra gram or two of carbs. Usually the caloric difference is not very significant. The most significant difference between an isolate and a concentrate is going to be the digestion quality. People typically have a better digestive experience with isolate compared to concentrate. Concentrate is usually cheaper because it is a less rigorous process for filtration. So companies may choose to do that because it makes the product a little cheaper. Isolate tends to be more expensive due to the extra work for the filtration, but it does tend to have a better digestive quality. Specifically myself, I choose isolate because I want the digestive benefit. If you have any digestive stress, that is just exacerbated by eating more meals and more frequently throughout the day. So the less inflammation, the less irritation you can have in your digestive system, the better. But that is the difference between isolate and concentrate. There you go. Quick and easy. Next question we have is definitely not quick. This is a paragraph. So bless me with some patience as you listen to this. I'm currently training to lose body fat, but I would like to still build muscle in my shoulders, upper back, and glutes. I am following the fat loss and shaping program, yay, and am in the process of setting up my diet according to the nutrition education video, great. In the video, you mentioned that percentages of fat and carbs do not need to be predetermined, that they can change depending on activity level at the time of the meal. I was wondering, is there a minimum I should have for dietary fats for general health needs? I listened to a podcast recently that said dietary fats rather than carbs are healthier for people when in a calorie deficit. Okay, so they're training to lose body fat, but they want to build muscle in certain areas. They have the right training program for that, which is excellent, and now they have questions about nutrition. They are correct that the amount of carbs and fats you have in a day do not need to be predetermined. Really, we want to track our total calories and our total protein. And then our total protein is factored into the calories that we would have per day. So once you subtract the protein calories, the remaining calories can really be any percentage of carbs and fats that fits the individual person's needs. Some people like fat-based foods. Fat-based foods are slower to digest, so they tend to have better satiety. You tend to feel fuller between your meals. So if you have a lower meal frequency, maybe leaning into fats is better for you. You'll be less hungry between meals and you'll eat the foods you actually like. Now, other people, they prefer carb-based foods, and maybe they eat on a more frequent basis. because their schedule allows that. Maybe they digest better that way. Maybe they're trying to get a lot of calories in, so it's easier to eat like 4 to 5 smaller meals and try to eat 3 larger meals. So maybe they would lean into carbs as their preference. Also, sometimes people tend to just kind of feel better working out with certain foods. Some people will do a fat-based diet and their energy is great. Their digestion is great. Good for them. Others, if they do a fat-based diet and then they go try to like lift weights, they're going to feel like crap and have no energy and blah. So they might be better off with carbs. There are individual differences, so therefore you would pick based on whatever's best for you, as long as our total calorie intake matches our goal and our total protein intake matches our goal. The percentage of carbs and fats that you use is individually preferential. Like, you can do whatever's best for you. Getting to their question though about is there a minimum amount of healthy fats, there is research that kind of suggests around 30 to 40 grams of fats a day would be considered the minimal. You want 2/3 of your fats coming from unsaturated sources, 1/3 from saturated. Unsaturated tends to be dubbed the healthier fats, and saturated tends to be the unhealthy, because saturated fats typically are associated with like fried foods and things like that. Now, saturated fats do come into hormone health, and that was likely where that podcast leaned into why dietary fats are better than carbs when in a calorie deficit. They may have been kind of pushing that narrative in relation to the hormone health. I don't know, because I don't know what the podcast was that you listened to, but that would be an argument that I could see somebody making, is dietary fats do play a role in like vitamin kind of digestion and utilization, and then hormone production. So if you were to eat a diet completely void of fats, there definitely could be an argument for that being not optimal for hormone health and like vitamin digestion. However, typically, if people, even if they lean towards a higher carb-based diet, they're still going to get fats in their diet. It's either going to come with carb sources or protein sources, so it comes like indirectly. But if you're concerned about that, you can look to make sure that you're consuming at least 30 to 40 grams of fat in your diet. You can also supplement with, omega fats and some other base type of supplements that would help. But that's something you can kind of choose on your own basis. There are tons and tons and tons of people who do high carb, high protein diets, and their health is fine. That's a good way to just kind of double check, is getting your blood markers tested, like get your blood health checked if you are concerned at all. So 30 to 40 grams of fats in a day is probably a baseline minimum for the most part that most people would recommend. And then you can get your blood work done if it's a concern for you. But I haven't really ran into any clients. Like, I've worked with over 3,000 people. I've been doing this since I was 18. I'm 41. So 23 years of getting paid to help people with nutrition and training. And I can't tell you a single circumstance in which somebody was under eating fats so severely that it was a health concern, other than clients I've had who have had eating disorders like anorexia, bulimia, and some things like that. So most people, if they're eating a normal-based diet, normal calories and protein within recommended amounts, and they're weight training, they're not overly restrictive, like below their BMR in regards to calories, they're probably going to be fine. But again, if you were worried, you can aim for 30 to 40 grams minimum of fats, and you can get your blood work checked. So there you go. Cool. Next question. Is caloric cycling, eating more on training days versus non-training days, but still maintaining a weekly deficit, an optimal way to manage fat loss while wanting to build maximal muscle? Yes, that can work. So essentially what they're looking to do is eating more when they move more, eating less when they move less. That's another way of phrasing it. And that works perfectly fine. So if they want to build muscle, they want to make sure that they have a sufficient amount of protein in their diet. If you're lifting weights on a regular basis, I would say the general recommended range would be 0.8 grams to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight for protein per day. Some people will do more. I would not recommend less if you're lifting weights and you want to maximize muscle. Some people will do more, especially if they're taking extra supplementation that helps boost protein synthesis, muscle creation. They might eat more than that. There are plenty of people who eat, 1.5, even 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. I would say that you could argue that that's not necessary, depending on supplementation, depending on training intensity and frequency. So 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight for protein is a good window to start at. See how you feel. If your recovery is a little slow, maybe you could try to eat more and see if that helps you recover more. And then calories, you do want to make sure that you're if you go into a deficit to help the fat loss, you want to be in a moderate deficit. One of the things to think of is on the day we train, we cause a lot of muscle damage. The day after that, like the 24 hours, the 48 hours, even up to 72 hours after a training session, depending on the intensity and the volume, is when your muscles are actually growing. That's when the muscles are recovering and growing. So if we have maybe calorie maintenance or even a little bit of a surplus on our training day, and then the next day you're like, well, I want to cut off a bunch of fat, so I'm going to go to like 50% of my calorie needs, you're going to severely impact muscle growth. So muscle growth can happen in a calorie deficit, but it has to be a very moderate deficit. And what I would mean by that is if you figure out your maintenance calories, you could be in maybe a 10, maybe up to 20% discount. I would say, discount, deficit, 10 to 20% deficit, and you're still going to get, decent muscle growth, but you're going to get really good fat control. It depends on how much fat you need to control and or lose. If you're already relatively lean, you could be in a very small deficit on your non-training days, like 5 to 10%, calorie deficit. If you want to take a lot of fat off, well, then you're going to have to balance some of the desire to build maximal muscle with the fat coming off. So you might need to be in a larger deficit on your training and non-training days in order to push the fat loss. And by doing the eat more when I move more, eat less when I move less, you are going to still have an awareness and attention to maximizing performance and muscle growth. You would need to, though, have a greater weekly deficit if you have a lot more fat to come off. So for each individual, it would kind of depend on what their body fat level already is, and then their balance of that concept with how much muscle they want, and then that determines where their calories are for training and non-training days. If you want to find out what your maintenance calories are, a really quick, easy way is to just go on Google and search bmrcalculator.net. And it'll take you to a website called calculator.net. They have a BMR calculator. You put in your age, gender, weight, and then if you know your body fat percentage, you can put that in there as well. It then gives you a chart of what your BMR is, which is your basal metabolic rate, which is the minimum amount of calories you need to stay alive. But that would only be if you're laying in bed doing nothing. Then they have a chart that says, okay, if you're sedentary, eating this amount of calories would maintain your weight. If you're active 2 to 3 times a week, 5 to 7 days a week, blah, 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 blah. So it gives you this chart. And that gives you a guesstimation, a pretty good guesstimation of where your calories would need to be for maintenance. So if you're wanting to create a deficit, you would then apply the percentage deficits that I talked about, that 5 to 10 to 20% from whatever the activity range that matches your needs, your maintenance calories would be. Hopefully that made sense. So when I taught at the university level, I did exercise physiology labs, and we did a lot of testing for BMR, a lot of tests, DEXA scans, bod pods. We did calorimeter, like breathing test to find out BMR. Now, calculator.net calculator online is close enough. It's going to get you pretty much in the same ballpark. So you don't need to do any of the fancy kind of BMR tests. You can just use that online calculator, and that'll get you within the ballpark, and then you just make adjustments based on how you feel and what progress you're seeing in your training and in your physique. So yes, calorie cycling can be a great way to control body fat and or even promote fat loss while giving attention to building new muscle tissue. The next question we have is, I've read that fiber is important for digestive health and that Americans should have 40 grams of fiber per day. Currently, I'm increasing my fiber intake with 40 grams per day being the goal, but I'm experiencing bloating after my meals and struggling to meet my minimum calorie requirement. Which is more important? To get the daily recommended fiber intake or reduce my fiber to reduce the bloating, which would then imply that my digestion quality will be better. So therefore, I will have better utilization of my nutrients in my foods. I want to be healthy, but I want to make sure I'm growing as much as possible. Okay, so they're trying to boost their fiber. It's causing a lot of bloating, digestive stress. What should they do? Okay, so we can take smaller jumps in fiber increase. So maybe their normal daily average was only 15 to 20 grams, and now they're trying to go all the way to 40. That could potentially cause stress. You can also spread the fiber intake out throughout multiple meals of the day. So if you're really trying to push a lot of fiber in one of the meals, try to spread that out over multiple meals, and that can help as well. And then there are going to be cases in which they didn't mention that they're taking like a GLP-1, but if you're taking like a GLP-1, that'll slow digestion and that can cause fiber to cause more problems and more bloating and gas. You can also reduce the amount of fats you have in your meals. Sometimes the combination of high fiber and high fat can cause bloating in a single meal. So you can look to maybe reduce the fat intake, swap some of the fats for carbs, and that might help mitigate some of the issue as well. And then getting blood work, I mentioned that already, but getting blood work to see where your blood markers are, if you're healthy, and if you have regular bowel movements. The regularity of bowel movements is actually extremely variable. It could be anywhere from once every 3 days to 3 times per day. And that is considered a normal range of bowel movements. So as long as you're in that range, if you're not experiencing constipation or any kind of digestive, like going to the bathroom issues, then your fiber might be okay. An example of this is I don't consume 40 grams of fiber on a regular basis. My blood markers are fine. The reason why is I try to eat a lot of food because I'm pretty heavy. Right now I'm 255 pounds and I'm dieting, so I'm not consuming as many calories as I would like to. But my typical maintenance calories is actually around 3,500 to 4,000 calories. If I try to consume a high amount of fiber, I'm just not hungry enough for my meals and I can't get enough food in. If I were to have poor blood health or poor bowel movements or digestive quality due to that, I would try to figure that out and fix it, but I'm fine, I'm healthy, I'm going to the bathroom on a regular basis, nothing's wrong. So I don't really need to force more fiber in if I don't need it. And I actually have a condition like it's a slowing down of digestion naturally. I naturally don't have a very fast digestive tract. Like I've had scopes and surgeries done where you're supposed to fast from like midnight till the next day when they do the surgery, and there's still actually food in my stomach when they go do the surgery. So I've actually had to learn that my body digests food very slowly. So I've had to stretch that out in different circumstances, and reducing fiber is one of the ways I can mitigate some of the negatives of that. So that's maybe a random example, but a lot of options for what you can try to do to mitigate the bloating that you're having. And just again, kind of take your time. So if you have an idea of where you were on a regular basis, you can just try to add 5 grams to that every 2 weeks and give your body time to adjust. And then also switching up your sources. So you might be having bloating just due to a source of food. So for example, sometimes people will respond differently to oats or to like brown rice. Somebody might be having more oats in their diet and they've been told that that's the right thing to do for their goals, but every time they have oats, they have a lot of bloating and gas. So maybe we just have to eliminate oats and put something else in. Same experience with brown rice. Sometimes people have bloating and gas due to just it being brown rice and their body doesn't digest that well. But if they were to switch that to some other carb source that still has fiber, the digestion is much better. So it can be specific food choices might also be the issue as well. So there's a lot to unpack there, a lot of things to try. Try any of those and let me know if they helped. So that way we can continue to get you help if you need it. Cool. So those were our nutrition questions. We have one training question, so we'll go through and read that. I've been following the strength program for powerlifting. I've noticed that workouts 1 and 3 tend to feel harder or more demanding than the other workouts. Is that intentional, or might I be doing something wrong in the workouts. That actually is intentional. In the program is created with a waving concept for a CNS stress, and that is to promote better strength progression long term. The way to break this down is if every time you go into the gym, you absolutely destroy yourself, you will actually start to dig a recovery demand that you can't out recover. And we get fatigued, we get tired, our body gets stressed, cortisol goes up, sleep goes down. And then that starts to impact our recovery, maybe our nutrition, maybe our hydration, maybe our protein, maybe our desire for workouts. And all of a sudden now we don't really want to train. We don't want to go into the gym and just destroy ourselves every single time. However, if we never push our current limits, we never expand our current limits. The program is designed to have waves of intensity for CNS within the program itself. So that way we don't have to have deload weeks, which are commonly used in strength-based training, but they're not necessary. So I've trained people to national records, elite totals, 10 times body weight totals, and we've never taken deload weeks as a regular thing. We just take them if and ever they ever need it, which is typically usually around being sick or a vacation or something. We don't schedule them on a regular basis. So sometimes you'll see people like they do a deload week every 4 weeks. It's completely unnecessary. Can it work? Sure, and it has for many people, but is it necessary? No. So I don't schedule deloads as a regular thing for my clients, my one-on-one clients. And then when I was creating the programming for Patreon, I use the concepts that work well for my one-on-one clients in our Patreon programming. And one of those concepts is a CNS wave, which means we hit the CNS pretty hard workout 1, and then we would have workout 2 and usually a day off before we hit workout 3. So workout 1 is a big hit. Workout 2 is medium, then we have a recovery day. Workout 3 is a big hit. Workout 4 is medium. Then we have 1 or 2 recovery days, then it's the next week. By having 2 spikes in CNS stress per week, but with those recovery times in between those workouts, it allows our body to have its limits pushed, but then it can recover and meet that demand. Push, recover, and meet that demand. So it's kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back process. We're not actually going backwards. We're actually pushing and then letting the body catch up, pushing, letting the body catch up. So it's never really backwards. That is going to be an amazing concept. It's going to help you tons. I've trained people for over a decade, the same athlete, and they've been competitive in powerlifting and strength-based sports for over a decade. And we've just continued to make progress the whole time. And we avoid injuries, we avoid burnout. It's just a nice, steady system that works well. Everything goes good when we do this. So it's the tortoise and the hare kind of thing is people might think I'm going to just destroy myself every single workout. I'm going to get there as fast as I can. You'll either burn out before you get there, or when you get there, you'll burn out or get injured, or that's usually the people you see that are super popular in social media, because that's typically where we see them. They'll blow up out of nowhere, have a couple, like 1, 2, maybe 3 good years, then they just disappear. And that's usually the approach they took, was beating the crap out of themselves every single time, and they survived it enough to get to a certain level, but then they didn't survive it. So our goal would be is to do the undulating waves, like the CNS waves, so that way we just nice steady progress year after year after year after year after year, and we can lift and have fun and enjoy ourselves for a lifetime. So that's the goal. So you're not doing anything wrong if you notice that some of the workouts have a bigger kind of like fatigue and demand than a couple of the other workouts. That is normal, and it's actually optimal. The next question we have, I've been dieting and training for 8 weeks. My goal was to give the process 8 weeks before I weighed myself. That was smart. But at my 8-week weigh-in, I've only lost 1 pound. This was extremely discouraging. I know following a diet and training program can take time to see progress, but what is a realistic rate of progress? I do feel better, and my boyfriend said he thinks I look smaller, but only seeing 1 pound loss on the scale has really hit me hard. Okay, if you're newer to weight training, you may be building muscle and filling out glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates and water within your muscle cells. And that can make you weigh more. Adding muscle tissue makes you weigh more because it's more tissue on the body. And then increasing stored glycogen makes you weigh more because we store carbohydrates with sodium and water. And the water part of it can make you weigh more. When somebody first starts a diet, like say they do a ketogenic diet and they have no carbs, they can lose like 8 pounds in the first 3 or 4 days, and it's just water weight. It's just water dumping out of their body because they don't have carbohydrates to hold that water in their body. So they'll notice they're peeing about 1,000 times a day and they're thirsty all the time. Their joints are cracking when they kind of get up and move and walk. That's just water weight loss. And then usually after those, the first initial days of the first week, the rate of loss slows down significantly, maybe 2 pounds a week, 1 pound a week. So that initial drop is simply just water weight manipulation. It's not fat loss. You'll see that when somebody does extreme changes to carbohydrates. If you are newer to lifting weights and maybe eating consistently now that you're following a diet, you might be experiencing some of those counter weight loss effects. Your weight might be actually increasing related to muscle tissue and stored glycogen, and then also just inflammation in the body from the weight training that can cause increased water retention. And then if you're not consuming at minimum, and I mean minimum, half your body weight in ounces of water a day, you're likely dehydrated, and that's increasing your water retention due to inflammation and stress. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you want to be consuming at least 100 ounces of fluid a day, and that's again a minimum. You should be doing like more than that, hopefully, and that will help flush out water retention, help flush out, doesn't like flush out inflammation, but it'll reduce some of the impact you might be seeing that's countering the fat loss that is actually happening, but maybe isn't showing up on a weight scale. So when we weigh ourselves, we're weighing literally everything on and in our body. So if you change your clothes, for example, when you weigh yourself, that'll change your weight. If you weigh yourself in the morning versus the afternoon, that's going to change your body weight because now you've had more meals and more fluid intake throughout the day, so you're going to weigh more. If you weigh yourself before you pee versus after you pee in the morning, that can change the body weight. And then we have just daily fluctuations. So maybe you happen to weigh yourself, 8 weeks apart, but if you weighed yourself the very next day, you might be down an extra ½ pound just due to changes in water retention. So for example, if the night before you ate your dinner later in the evening and it had higher sodium and carbohydrate intake, you'll be heavier the next morning because the food is still in you and you're now retaining more water. Whereas if you had dinner earlier in the evening and it had lower sodium and lower carbohydrates, you would actually weigh less the next morning because maybe now you've processed the food and it's come out of you, or you have less water retention. So the what we eat and when we eat can impact our weight as well, and whether we've gone to the bathroom and gotten stuff out of us or not can change your weight as well. So I would actually recommend two recommendations. Number one, weighing yourself more often, so that way you can see those fluctuations and get a better idea of what the trending rate of loss is across multiple measurements. I weigh myself every day. You don't need to do that if you don't want to, but that's the way I like to do it because I like to have more data points to see trends over time and learn how individual meals, individual foods impact my weight. So I like that. I like data. However, a different frequency could be weighing yourself every Monday and Thursday, and you want to weigh yourself in the morning. You want to come up out of bed, go to the bathroom, and then step on the scale. Wear the same thing every time you step on the scale, or wear nothing, because that's the same thing. And then do it Mondays and Thursdays. Monday I like because it's going to see like what you did over the weekend and then what you weigh on Monday morning. And then usually Monday through Thursday, or Monday through Friday, is kind of our most consistent days of food. So typically when people are busy during the week, they tend to eat the same foods and be a little more regimented because they have to be regimented for everything else they're doing. And then the weekends, usually people lose their mind and do a bunch of crazy stuff. There are occasionally clients who are the opposite, where during the week, everything's, chaos. And then on the weekend, they're like, finally I can take time and eat and sleep. But there tends to be, for most people, a habit difference during the week versus weekends. And then that will impact how much we weigh. So it's good to measure the difference On Monday, it kind of tells us what we did over the weekend. On Thursday, it tells us what we did Monday through Wednesday. And if you start to see those numbers always being off, then it might indicate that we're overeating or doing something wrong on the weekend or doing something on Monday through Wednesday to normalize. So it's a signal to normalize what we're doing on the weekends during the weeks so we can get that to be more consistent. And then you can also just track every Monday, from Monday to Monday to Monday to Monday and Thursday to Thursday to Thursday to Thursday. And that gives you more consistency in seeing the trends over time. And then the next suggestion would be is to get a DEXA scan. You can see your progress better if you look at body composition versus body weight. A DEXA scan, it's DEXA scan, is available in most urban cities, communities. For example, I live near Charlotte, North Carolina, and you can get a DEXA scan for like $75. It takes 20 minutes. You can do it usually any day of the week or even on a Saturday for most places. So you can get a DEXA scan, and that'll tell you how much body fat you have, how much muscle mass you have, even how much your bones weigh. It'll tell you a bunch of other stuff as well. But that is a way to see what's happening under the skin, and you'll see that maybe you've built some muscle but lost some fat. So more change has happened than what you can actually see just on a weight scale. So weighing yourself more often and more consistently can help actually see trends over time, and testing body composition can help. And I do recommend a DEXA scan over other methods of testing. And a DEXA scan can be done once every 3 to 6 months. And that gives you a good kind of time in between those scans to make changes and see how progress has come along since the last time you did the scan. Cool. Then we have our last question for the day is, how can I get my business to stand out online? I see so many trainers posting about gaining followers and going viral, but I've been stuck around 1,000 followers for 6 months, and my average reel views is only like 100. How can I grow my business when the market seems so saturated? I know if I were to post more TNA, okay, they wrote parentheses. I'm assuming you know what that means. That's great. I'll explain that in a second. And that I could get more attention, but I don't want more attention. I want more clients, not creepers. Yes. What has worked for you? What do you recommend to your trainer clients? Okay, fun stuff in that question. TNA, I'll let you figure out what that means. But basically what they're saying is if they were to post more skin. So the phrase like sex sells. What they're saying is if they were to make posts where they were showing more skin, that would likely bring more attention. But they don't want just attention, they want clients. So that's good. Good for you. That's a good way to approach it. So essentially, how can I get my business to stand out online? Okay, it's true that there's a lot of fitness influencers, a lot of fitness businesses, but there's a lot of businesses in any industry. So any industry now on social media is very well represented, unless it's a new industry. But even new ones get saturated very quickly. So how we can kind of stand out, and this is based on the comment on the TNA and the skin, is you want to stand out, but in the sense of how do I get more clients? So basically, how can I get more clients without doing all the things that don't lead to clients, but maybe creepers? So how do I get more followers and all that? Okay, well, it looks like you have 1,000 followers. That's not bad. That's if you had 1,000 people sign up for your services, I'm sure you would have enough money, enough clients. And then an average of 100 views is actually normal because that's around 10% of your followers. I've watched a lot of videos, read a lot of online articles and stuff about social media marketing. And when you say followers, like for example, Facebook could be friends. I think followers is Instagram. I don't know what term TikTok uses. So maybe you're talking about TikTok and or Instagram. It doesn't really matter. All the fitness platforms would be the same. Is you're never going to get 100% participation from all the people that follow you or are like your friends on a platform. Usually 10% is actually the norm. So if you have 1,000 followers and 10% of those people check in on your content, that's actually normal, unfortunately. So you're not doing anything bad there. Typically, what they recommend is On Instagram, for example, and I think TikTok is the same, is the first like 3 seconds of a video really matters the most. YouTube, it's a little extended. I think it's like 5 or 6 seconds, but the initial catch has to be very eye-grabbing, catching. You only have basically 3 to 6 seconds, roughly, to get someone's attention and make them continue to watch, because they're scrolling on their phone. And they're like, okay, I'm watching this for 1 or 2 seconds. Is it interesting? No. 1 or 2 seconds, is it interesting? No. So you look at the thumbnail, the image you start with is extremely important. You want to make it colorful. You want to make it where, like, when you look at it, if it's a concept you want to have be clear, you look at it, you know exactly what it is. Or you look at it and you go, what is that? And you want to make it interesting. You want to make somehow it's visual. So usually it's bright colors. If you do a black and white scheme, that's fine, but what you have a black and white image of has to be interesting. So the thumbnail is extremely important. It has to be like interesting. If you were to see it for half a second, does your brain go, ooh? Is that the feeling you get? Or is it ho-hum, the same normal image that you see, all the time? So if you were to just scroll and go through 20 posts or 20 images, does your image stand out in some way? That's a good way to look at it. So that's the initial image, the thumbnail. And then you have 3 to 5 seconds to get someone's attention. So what is the title you use? What's the catchphrase? What's the intro? You want to use something that gets people's interest. One way of doing it is to pose a question. When you ask a question, humans' natural response is to answer that question. They're going to probably answer it internally, not out loud to their phone. But you want to ask a question. That's a really good way of doing it. Or make the verbal description, or if you use a written description, extremely succinct. So bigger glutes, boom. And that'll get somebody's attention rather than, would you like to grow bigger glutes? They're going to get to would you, and they just stop paying attention. So just, bigger glutes, and then with an image of a peach, whatever the heck people use nowadays. So trying to think of the thumbnail image, you have 3 seconds to say or write something that gets their attention. You want to make things move fast in the imagery, in the video. You want to, like, one of the goals I've had editing certain YouTube videos, and I don't do this all the time because it takes forever amount of time, but is in the first roughly about 1 minute, can I have the screen change every 6 seconds? 6 seconds or less. So I try to, in the first 1 minute, have the image or the screen or something change or shift or move every 6 seconds. So if it's a screen image like what you're seeing now, after I say one sentence, all of a sudden it zooms in a little bit. I say another sentence, it zooms back out. So you'll notice in content that you watch, there's often a lot of screen shifts. If you look at even podcasts, somebody will be talking, it'll zoom in on a little bit, it'll zoom out, it'll cut to the listener, it'll cut back to the person talking, but now it's at this angle versus that angle. There's a lot of movement, and that tends to keep people interested and engaged, even if it's subconscious. It's just the way human brains work. So that's going to be some things to look at, is the imagery. And then the content itself, this is challenging because there's a lot of things you can go for. Some focus, like one focus potential could be credibility. You can make like a post that says, try to think of like, it might say, doctors say blah, 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 or a doctor analyzes so-and-so's training program. Exercise scientists' thoughts on bicep curls. So sometimes credibility using certain titles can help catch people's attention because they're like, oh, exercise scientist, let me see what he says, Or you'll see people say like, my biceps got 10 times bigger when I did this. I hate those ones because the biceps didn't get 10 times bigger. But the brain usually checks it out and says, well, let's see what it is, that kind of thing. So like how to boost your squat by 20 pounds today, that kind of stuff. You just want to have phrasing, having concepts that would be interesting and helpful. I don't do a great job of, I try to do a good job on my Instagram but I won't let go of the fact that I want the post to be beneficial or helpful in some way. I don't want to do a post just to get some people's attention, but there's not like a takeaway from it. I want there to be some kind of takeaway. You'll see a lot of things that go viral. There's not necessarily a takeaway from it. Somebody just kind of does a dumb routine or a goofy thing that went viral. Like people do those tortilla slap things where somebody holds water in their face, then they slap each other, and then somebody spits it out and laughing. That gets a lot of attention, but there's nothing to learn there. You can then have your logo, and then people like, oh, that person, I'm now aware of that company. So there's a lot of that kind of marketing where there's something that's a viral concept and they just tag their logo to it, and that raises awareness of that logo. And then whenever they post something about their services, that logo is already in your brain a little bit. So there's a lot of science to it. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. I think I've, at this point, way past rambling. I have no clue if this is helpful anymore. But those are the general takeaways, is to pay attention to your thumbnail. You just pay attention to the first 3 to 5 seconds, and then when you make content, have the screen shift a lot. So that way people's attention stays engaged. And then you also want to move through the content relatively quickly. If it's something like this where it's a long form video, there's no need to do all of that. But if you're looking at social media and you want to stand out, you're likely talking about like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, things like that. That's a much faster platform. So people aren't sitting down and trying to be engaged for an hour-long video. They just want to have some entertainment and something fun, or learn something really quick that they can apply that makes their life better. So you got to make it quick, got to make it shift a lot. That's typically what I think of is in some way, is this going to help someone? And then how can I present that in the most interesting way? That's my approach. I don't have 1 million followers, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask, but it's sustained a good business. So, so whatever I'm doing is working well enough. That's the goal. So hopefully that answer was helpful. I don't know, but thank you for asking it. If you have follow-up questions, please let me know. Overall, that is all the questions we have for this week. I appreciate the people who send in questions, and I do address questions directly if they don't apply well to like a Q&A. So even if you have a question but you're like, I don't know if everybody else needs to know about that, send it anyhow. I enjoy answering the questions. It's part of the service. It's part of the reward of being a member. You don't have to try to format your questions into what is good for a Q&A. You just ask the questions. I'll cover the information, make sure you get your answer. And then again, if you join, remember that you get nutrition education, bunch of training programs. You can request information at any time, and I'll make sure that I fill that content so that way you're getting what you need. And there you go. If you want to check out the service, again, it's patreon.com/C3method, C-T-H-R-E-E method. You can go to our website, which is c3method.com, or email me at c3method@gmail.com. Okay, I think that's everything. If you find this stuff helpful, please share it. Please talk to other people, share it on social media, whatever you can do. The more people that are aware of this, the more people it can help. There you go. Okay, as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching.